Hey guys, how's it going? It's Danconia and welcome back to the Overwatch Contenders Roundup. So we are fast approaching the end of Season 1 of Contenders 2020, and because of that, this is the second video of the weekend, or actually it's Monday now, but this is the second video where we'll be taking a look at the results coming in from the end of Week 3, which we covered in the last video, and this one is going to be covering the rest of the trials for Week 4. So, we've actually got 5 regions to look at. I don't think we've done that many regions in one video before, but we're going to get on with it. So we're going to start out with China, and this was their trials, seeing Pokemon Max, Phantom Wizard, Sponsor Taking Gaming, Ignition 1, Universe Stinker, MDT, Unnamed, and Zenith of Optimism, all competing for those spots in Contenders Week 4, the last week of Season 1. And in China, you would see Phantom Wizard, Ignition 1 going through as first and second seeds, topping groups A and B respectively, and then Sponsor Taking Gaming and Unnamed would be getting the third and fourth spots for the second spots in Group A and Group B. That meant that MDT, Pokemon Max, Universe Stinker, and Zenith of Optimism would not be going through to Week 4 of Contenders in China, but we don't know what their sort of open division setup is like, or I don't anyway. So we don't know exactly how the qualification works for trials going into the next season of Contenders, which won't be for a little bit. But now we've covered China, we'll move on to South America. Now this is where the format irons itself out. Obviously, you're going to go through to Contenders Week 4, or you're going to drop out through to Open Division Season 3 playoffs that'll take place before the start of the next season of Contenders. So, in Brazil, we saw Pacific Ocelots, Capybara Esports, Betrayed, Upgaming, Loja Geek, Anime Club, Ignis 6, Burnout, Night Haze, Glacial, Las Lagarta Jazz, and No Ping Esports. So, in the round of 12, we saw Anime Club take on No Ping Esports. This would be a narrow 3-2 win for No Ping. Ignis 6 would take on Las Lagarta Jazz. This would be a 3-0 win for Ignis 6. Burnout would take on Glacial, and this would be a 3-0 win for Burnout, and Loja Geek would take on Night Haze, and this would be a 3-2 win for Loja Geek. All of the people losing in the round of 12 will go to the Season 3 Open Division playoffs. So we'll go through that again in a minute. But at the quarterfinals, we see the seeded teams come in. Capybara Esports would take on No Ping. This would be a 3-0 win for Capybara. Betrayed would take on Ignis 6. This would be a 3-1 win for Betrayed. Upgaming would take on Burnout, and this would be a 3-1 win for Upgaming. And Pacific Ocelots would take on Loja Geek, and this would be a 3-0 win for Pacific Ocelots, with all of the seeded teams going through to the semi-finals. Capybara Esports would take on Betrayed in the first of those semi-finals, with a 3-1 win for Betrayed, and Upgaming would take on Pacific Ocelots in the second one, and it would be a narrow 3-2 win for Upgaming. So in the final, we saw Upgaming take on Betrayed, and this would be a 3-1 win for Betrayed, allowing them to take home the title of Trials Week 4 champions for Season 1 2020 in South America, and going in as that number 1 seed for Week 4 of Contenders in South America. Going through to that tournament will be Betrayed, Upgaming, Capybara Esports, Pacific Ocelots, No Ping Esports, Ignis 6, Burnout, and Loja Geek. The 4 teams dropping to Open Division Season 3 playoffs will be Anime Club, Las Lagarta Jazz, Glacial, and Night Haze. But that covers South America. Now we will move on, and now we find ourselves in Korea for Week 4 of Trials. In Week 4 of Trials in Korea, we saw World Game Star Phoenix, Lucky Future, Top Honor, Runaway, Oza Gaming, Meta Athena, T1, Team BM, Blossom, Bravos Gaming, Team PSR, and GC Busan Wave. So, in the round of 12, we saw Meta Athena take on GC Busan Wave. This would be a clean 3-0 sweep for Meta Athena. T1 would take on Blossom, and this would be a clean 3-0 for T1. Oza Gaming would take on Team PSR, and this would be a clean 3-0 for Oza Gaming. And Team BM would take on Bravos Gaming, and this would be a 3-1 win for Team BM. All of those 4 teams that lost would be going down to those Open Division Season 3 playoffs. Again, we'll cover that again in a minute. But at the quarterfinal stage, we saw the seeded teams come in, and Runaway would take on Meta Athena. This would be a 3-2 win for Meta Athena. That isn't too bad for Runaway, because they still get through to the main Contenders tournament, but they really do need a good placing this week alongside Lucky Future if they want to guarantee themselves a place in the playoffs for Season 1 of 2020 in Korea, because they are by far not guaranteed that. But WGS Phoenix would take on T1. This would be a narrow 3-2 win for T1. Lucky Future would take on Oza Gaming. This would be a 3-0 win for Lucky Future. And Top Honor would take on Team BM, and this would be a 3-2 win for Team BM. Moving on to those semi-finals, we saw Meta Athena take on T1. This would be a 3-1 win for T1, and Lucky Future would take on Team BM, and this would be a narrow 3-2 win for Lucky Future, setting up the final against T1 and T1 would take it 3-1 in the end to get that title for Week 4 Trials in Korea of Season 1 2020. This meant that going through to Week 4 of Contenders will be T1, Lucky Future, Meta Athena, Team BM, Runaway, Wargame Star Phoenix, Oza Gaming and Top Honor, with the Open Division Season 3 playoffs welcoming GC Busan Wave, Blossom, Team PSR and Bravos Gaming to round out Korea. So it's going to be very interesting to see whether Runaway, Top Honor, Lucky Future, those teams fighting it out for that last sort of playoff spot. We'll see what we will see what they do next week. Going to be very, very interesting. Moving on, and we are coming to the last two regions. We are going to start off in Europe, because why not? We always leave NA to last, and I don't know why. But in Europe, we saw Hughes Money Crew EU, Ex Oblivione, Raspberry Racers, Dreadlords, Vasta Gaming, Raw Esports, Vox Nihili, Samsung Morning Stars, Angry Titans, Chaos Insurgency, HSL Esports, and In Control. So, in the round of 12, we saw Raw Esports take on Angry Titans. This would be a 3-0 win for Raw Esports. That is not good for the Angry Titans. Samsung Morning Stars would get a bye into the quarterfinals, very luckily for them, because In Control have, I believe, disbanded. So they get a bye and therefore will avoid Open Division. Vox Nihili would take on Chaos Insurgency, and Chaos Insurgency would get a 3-0 win. And Vasta Gaming will take on HSL Esports, and this would be a 3-0 win for HSL Esports. So we know the three teams that will be going down to Open Division out of those, and yeah, interesting. But the seeded teams come in at the quarterfinal stage. Shoes Money Crew EU taking on Raw Esports would be a 3-0 win for Shoes Money Crew. Raspberry Racers taking on Samsung Morning Stars would be an interesting one, but a 3-1 win for Raspberry Racers would see them through to the semi-finals. Dreadlords would take on Chaos Insurgency. This would be a clean 3-0 sweep for Dreadlords. And Ex Oblivione would take on HSL Esports. This would be a 3-1 win for Ex Oblivione. And moving on to those semi-finals, Ex Oblivione would take on Dreadlords. This would be a narrow 3-2 win for Ex Oblivione. And Raspberry Racers would take on Shoes Money Crew EU. Raspberry Racers would prove their class again with a 3-0 win over Shoes Money Crew EU. Raspberry Racers doing pretty well since their formation not that long ago. But Raspberry Racers would take on Ex Oblivione in the final, and it would be a 3-0 win for Raspberry Racers, with them claiming the title of Trials Week 4 winner in Europe for 2020 Season 1, the last winner of Trials in Season 1 of this year for Europe. Very, very interesting. But obviously going through to that Week 4 of Contenders, Raspberry Racers, Ex Oblivione, Shoes Money Crew EU, Dreadlords, Raw Esports, Samsung Morning Stars, Chaos Insurgency, and HSL Esports. Only 3 teams will be going down to the Open Division Season 3 playoffs because of In Control disbanding, but it would be Vasta Gaming, Vox Nihili, and Angry Titans. Angry Titans, remember, they won Contenders. Not, well, I mean, a couple of years ago? A year and a half ago? They are an established European organization for Overwatch, and they are in Open Division Season 3 playoffs. It's not great. There's been a lot of upheaval at the Angry Titans recently, and things really haven't been working out. Hopefully they can find some consistency and come back stronger in Season 2 for Europe, because they will not be featuring in this one. But we have one last Contenders region to go through. It's probably the one you've been waiting for. Yes, it's the North American region, where we saw Square One, Hype Units, Saints, Karasuno, Uprising Academy, Dark Mode Esports, Noble, Sky Foxes, Malibu, Odyssey, Revival, and Scion Esports. So, in the round of 12, we saw Uprising Academy taking on Revival. This would be a 3-2 win for the Uprising Academy, knocking Revival down to the Open Division playoffs, which is going to be interesting. Sky Foxes would take on Malibu. This would be a 3-0 win for Malibu. Noble would take on Odyssey. This would be a 3-1 win for Odyssey. And Dark Mode Esports would take on Scion Esports, and it would be a 3-0 win for Dark Mode, with them moving on. In the quarterfinals, we see the seeded teams come in. So we would see Saints taking on Uprising Academy. This would be a 3-1 win for Uprising Academy, and a good win for the only remaining Academy team in NA. Hype Unit would take on Malibu. This would be, again, a narrow game, but a 3-2 win for Malibu. 2 unseeded teams going through here. There's a bit of a trend in NA. Square One would take on Odyssey. This would be a 3-2 win for Odyssey. Again, another unseeded team. And Karasuno would take on Dark Mode Esports, and it'd be a 3-1 win for Dark Mode Esports, completing a clean sweep of all the seeded teams in Trials for Week 4 in North America. None of the seeded teams won. Very interesting. Semi-finals though, Uprising Academy taking on Malibu. This will be a 3-1 win for Uprising Academy. And Dark Mode Esports will take on Odyssey, and this will be a 3-1 win for Dark Mode Esports. Setting up that final against the Uprising Academy, where Dark Mode Esports will get a narrow 3-2 win over the Uprising Academy to claim that title of Trials Week 4 winner in North America. Very interesting. And Uprising Academy have really stepped up their game recently. So it'll be interesting to see how they do in the main Contenders tournament, the final one of this year, obviously. But going through to that Contenders Week 4, Dark Mode Esports, Uprising Academy, Malibu, Odyssey, Saints, Hype Unit, Square One, Karasuno, and then in the Open Division Season 3 playoffs, we will see Revival, Sky Foxes, Noble, and Scion Esports. And to be quite honest, I mean, Revival is a bit of a surprise to me, but what's an even more of a surprise compared to what we saw at the start of this Contenders season is Sky Foxes. Because I thought Sky Foxes were going to be one of the best teams in NA, but they have had so much upheaval and there's so much change in their roster that they have not found any consistency whatsoever, and they now find themselves in the Open Division Season 3 playoffs. But I'm sure a lot of these teams will get through those playoffs. I am sure of it. Like, Revival and Sky Foxes, they're very good teams. Noble's a good team as well, and so is Scion Esports. We might just see them come straight back through Open Division and come back in Season 2 of Contenders in NA. But that does round us off for this video on the trials for Week 4. That's all of the trials covered now, because we covered the Pacific and the Australian regions in a previous video. The next video will be the round out of all of the results from the main Week 4 tournaments, and then we will be going into playoffs where things get super interesting. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you'd like to give a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.